We want to hear what you've got to say because you're the people who actually matter. The politicians are all very well, but we are the people who actually give them the right to be our representatives in Parliament. So we want to hear from all of you and we want to know what you think about what happened last night. Let's talk to Lorraine, who's in Chelmsford. Hello, Lorraine.
Hello there, Mike.
I think I could say without any shadow of a doubt that the debate that you and I had was better than the one that we saw last night.
Absolutely. What I rang up for, Mike, is I found that conversation you were having earlier on this morning with the chap that you're going to do the debate with last night, and you was discussing how the anger seems to have gone out since the election has been called.
Yes.
For me personally, that anger has been replaced with disappointment, huge disappointment at the realisation of just how low calibre are not only the majority of our politicians, but also public people in all our institutions. The last 4 years has really exposed to myself, and I think to many others, just how corrupt, deceitful, and I would say the word treacherous, the majority of them are.
I wouldn't say it's the majority, but certainly there's a lot of them.
Oh, well, I can only really say I could count on one handful the majority of pure patriots, and that's a word that we're not meant to say. On one hand, patriots, true patriots, with the real interest of this country and its people at their heart. I watched all three debates on the television last night. I watched Boris and Corbyn, very disappointed. I then waited up until 10 o'clock to watch the debate on the same side, ITV, where they had Nicola Sturgeon, Joe Swinston, I can't remember the lady from the Green Party, and also Nigel Farage on there.
Berry, nobody can remember her name for some reason. It must be one of those forgettable names, Sian Berry. I don't know why. I'll say it twice just to make up for it.
Well, the two words that came into my mind when I listened to the three ladies who represent their different parties was deranged and delusional. And it was quite telling. The presenter, I can't remember her name either, asked them all, who would you invite onto I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out Here, into the jungle? Well, the three ladies said Nigel Farage, because I'd love to see him going through all these horrible things like eating kangaroo parts, etc. But Nigel was asked the same question, and he said, I would invite Boris Johnson, because I'd love to sit down with Boris and talk to him to understand what he really does believe in. And I have to say, I've come to the same conclusion. I then turned over at quarter to 11 onto BBC One, and there was question time.
You're a glutton for punishment, aren't you?
Yeah, Fiona Bruce was the commentator.
Right.
It was being held in Peterborough, and Nigel Farage was the only one there, and he was being questioned openly by the audience.
Right.
The venom that was coming from a lot of the audience directly at Nigel was palpable, unbelievable. Yeah. But to be honest with you, there's only one man that can debate and is the best communicator out of them all, and that is Nigel Farage.
But why doesn't he run for office then? Why doesn't he take that as a massive vote of confidence from people like you, Lorraine, and stand as an MP?
Because his real interest is the independence and the sovereignty of this country. If you look onto YouTube and watch that programme, Question Time last night, BBC One, you will see what he had to say. That he stands with conviction and is the only authentic politician out there.
Okay.
Really, watch it.
I will.
Tom, good afternoon to you. You're live on Talk Radio Drive. What have you got to say about what you saw last night?
Yeah, good afternoon. Yeah, I've been listening to, obviously, last night, and I've been listening to your programme all day today. And one of the things that really needles me is Jeremy Corbyn actually turned around and said, we're going to put it back to 3 months to get a proper deal. Then we're going to put it to this, and then we'll put it to a referendum, and we will implement what you lot want.
Yeah, he said actually, you will have the final say. We will
Yeah, we will
implement.
have the final
We will
say.
implement what you decide, and what you're going to say to me, Tom, is we have decided already.
That's right, for a year ago. So why are we going through it all over again?
Yeah, I thought it got a bit of an easy ride on that. That's what I didn't like about the format. There was no room for a journalist or an interviewer to come back and actually challenge them. Did you think at the end of it? Was it easy watching for you? Did it change your mind in any way? What did you think, Tom?
Not really. No, it didn't change my mind. I voted out, to be honest, and I just want to get it over and done with now. And you know, it's just I think it's just terrible.
Well, Tom, let me tell you, we'll put it back to you. You can have the final say, Tom, and then the Labour Party will implement what you decide this time, or maybe not. Maybe not.
Yeah. That's right.
Tom, tell me, where do you stand on it? You see, I would be quite open to a second referendum. If it was 2-0, then that's a resounding win. If it went to 1 apiece, then I wouldn't be against a best out of 3. But no one else seems to want that. It seems to me, if you do make an argument that we didn't know what we were voting for last time around, now we do. If it ends a score draw, you go to number 3. What's your view? Would you consider that at all?
I think if it went to another vote, I think it would be stay in.
You think it'd be a remain, so it'd be 1 apiece.
I believe it'd be remain. I think
so.
People, I think what it is as they say, they go back to the very beginning when everybody said we were lied to with the 35 billion on the NHS, and I think if people realised it was going to be this problem, much problem, they would just say, just look, remain, remain.
Yeah. So if it went 1 apiece, would you want a third referendum?
No, I don't think so. I just don't. I think it's a shame that we just can't just all get together and get new laws done or whatever they want to do and just stay as we are.
I mean, I didn't watch the debate last night because I refused to have the image of Jeremy Corbyn beamed into my living room. I prefer to read about the various takes on it afterwards. But I think there is a danger in all this election hype of ignoring the elephant in the room, which is how far have we fallen as a country when we could be on the threshold of putting a man who has consorted with this country's enemies for most of his political life and whose party is an absolute cesspit of anti-Semitism on the threshold of power. I mean, it really does go to show how far we've fallen as a country that people could even think of voting for this man.
Well, what I find staggering as well is the as we've heard from various people this morning, the kind of the twisting of the truth that goes on so much now, and it is kind of acceptable somehow because it keeps going on and nobody really stops it from happening, and people actually are generating stories which are not true and repeating them as if they are true.
Well, indeed, and Corbyn was guilty of that yesterday when he said that we leap on those who have committed anti-Semitism and expel them from the party. Now, according to my count this morning, there are over 130 outstanding cases of anti-Semitism in the Labour Party, some going back years, which are either being dealt with at a snail's pace or else just being completely ignored.
Well, certainly John Mann, the outgoing Labour MP, who's going to be heading up a Downing Street kind of unit looking into anti-Semitism for the country, not just for the Labour Party, has said many times to us on this very show, that it's still a big problem. And one of the reasons people have left the party is because of it.
Indeed. I mean, although I'm a staunch Brexiteer, I would never feel this sort of antipathy to somebody who was telling me they vote Lib Dem or Green. But I really, really do wonder how somebody can look into their soul, into their conscience. And we're not talking about these student Twitter bots who don't remember what it was like to live under socialism of any description, let alone the hard left version he's peddling, but are not even old enough to remember the sort of people that he consorted with in the 1980s. I do, because I grew up in London in the 1980s. I can remember exactly the sort of people Corbyn consorted with.
Yes, and I think a lot of other people can as well. Andrew, thanks very much indeed.
There's not much really happening there. It's everything that we've heard before. But the one point that I'd like to pick up on is what Jeremy Corbyn said, where he was going to go back to Europe, get a deal in 3 months, and then put that to the people, and then the people will decide. But the key bit he didn't respond to is what's going to be in his deal. Is it going to be everything that we have now without having any authority with the European Union? So it's the same as Remain, but without being at the table. Where at the moment we've got Boris's deal, so would he put that on the table? So Boris's deal, his deal, or remain or leave as without anything.
David Cogan, 40 seconds to answer that.
You're absolutely right. They're going to go back with a deal, if they can negotiate it, which is as close to being in the EU without actually being in it as they can get. And then they're going to say, they're going to put that up, and they're going to say you either vote for that or you vote to stay in. Boris's deal would not be put to you in a second referendum under Labour's plan.
Let's talk to Debbie, who's in the West Midlands. Hi, Debbie.
Hi, Mike.
How are you doing? Yeah, very well. Thanks for calling. What can I do for you?
I'd just like to make a couple of comments regarding the Leaders' debate last night.
Yes.
The first was that I found that the questions were really disappointing.
Yeah.
Obviously, the electorate is very concerned about Brexit, so that needed to be asked. And of course, the NHS, that question needed to be asked. But there was nothing on defence. There was nothing on crime, which are two aspects where the electorate are really, really concerned about those issues. Nothing on Labour's plans to nationalise BT, and then obviously thereafter probably everything else. So I felt that the questions didn't really give much opportunity for the leaders to actually address those issues, which I think the electorate are really concerned about.
Right.
And I also watched the questioners very carefully, looking at who they clapped and who they didn't, and yet again felt that there was a bias towards people who were quite left-wing.
Yeah,
and
I don't think the audience actually added anything, Debbie. For me, I'd rather if they didn't have an audience, because I'm not in favour of all this kind of cheering and whooping just because your man says something that you agree with.
Where do you stand on trust, Lee?
Well, I was just saying to your producer, I just find it a little bit strange that we're actually having a conversation about trust in the same breath as talking about politicians, full stop. and in that context, you could have that conversation forevermore. So let's take an example of Jeremy Corbyn, where he's been a staunch Brexiteer, if you like, throughout most of his career, and has suddenly done a backtrack on that. If you look at some of the votes that he's made in the past, they bear no correlation to the votes that he's now being pushed into as we stand. Politicians, by their nature, are people that are trying to create a picture for an electorate in order to get elected.
Yeah.
To single out one individual and say he's not trustworthy, is like saying that it's taking one snake and say he'll bite you and nobody else will.
I understand what you mean. And from your point of view, Lee, does this leave you, are you a realist about this, or does it leave you despondent?
I think one of the things that's happened is that politics was something that left most of the country despondent for an awful long time. And if nothing else, Brexit has focused people's attention and, if you like, re-engaged them in the political environment and the political arena, which, in terms of the younger people getting into age of consent and of voting, can only be a good thing. I think the danger then is the information they get, and I guess you could argue that leads back to the trust element. But part and parcel of the education as children is like anything else. You don't always believe everything that everybody tells you. You've got to go and make an effort to find out the information yourself, and I don't think that's an area that we're very good at.
Well, you don't have to tell me, but do you know how you're going to vote?
Yeah, I'm pretty certain how I'm going to vote, yes.
Okay. Thank you, Lee. Really appreciate it. Thanks. We've got Adrian, Stoke-on-Trent. Adrian, what concerns you?
Hello, Eamonn. A few things really talking about trust. Just like this, similar to the previous caller from Nottingham. We can't trust any MPs, unfortunately, after we've seen how they behaved over the last 3 years. And there's only Boris that is telling us that he's going to deliver on Brexit. So I've never voted Tory in my life. I've been a Labour man, but I can't vote for Corbyn. He's dangerous. He's promising us the earth. He's promising us free broadband. He's promising us a 4-day working week. Next week there'll be 3 unicorns. We just can't trust the guy, I'm afraid.
Well, you see, I think it's fascinating talking to you, Adrian, because I know it's a big thing. It's like supporting a football team or something throughout your life and then having to change. So it's not a decision you've taken lightly.
No, absolutely not. I'm a Manchester United fan like yourself, Eamon, and that football analogy works brilliantly, doesn't it? I mean, I've supported Labour, I've voted Labour. This time I can't, because I've seen how Corbyn and Labour have behaved with the Liberal undemocrats, and I just can't bring myself to vote for them. It will have to be Conservative, because Brexit has to be delivered. We've had a once-in-a-lifetime referendum, and that vote needs to be respected. I mean, you made me laugh when you said, what will we do if we have another one and it goes to 1-1?
Yeah.
Let's make it best out of 27.
Yeah.
You know, why stop it? Why stop best out of 3?
Yeah,
But
the difficulty is with us, we
Eamon,
can't...
nobody's...
Just saying, the difference with us is we can't score penalties.
Yeah, but sorry, Eamon, I was interrupting you there. But my concern is that if we go to another referendum, how long is it going to take to organise that? And the cost, nobody has mentioned the cost.
The cost of referendum,
yeah. It cost at least 130 million, the last referendum. Nobody is talking about that. Nobody is opposing people when they say, let's have another referendum.
Well, you've raised the subject, Adrian. You've raised the subject, and we'll put it out there, mate. Really appreciate your call. Thanks very much.